Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Shopify. How many people have been to this office before? That's pretty impressive. So for those of you that don't know, Shopify is a company that provides an e-commerce experience to allow everyone to engage in commerce. We basically try our best to make commerce better for everyone. And product is something that we hold deeply to our heart and is a very central focus for the entire company. And we do things we only don't do e-commerce software. We also engage in other things because the main goal for Shopify is to make commerce better for everyone. And honestly, the best thing that I can say is I started here 6 months ago, and it's been one of the greatest experiences of my life. And if that's evident in my hesitation to describe what it's like working here, it's been a great 6 months, and I really have learned a lot. And if Shopify sounds like something that you would want to be part of, feel free to check out what we're always hiring product people. So if this sounds like a place that you would want to work at, feel free to talk to me, talk to Corey, and Rahul should be somewhere in there as well. He's right over there. So come see us, come talk to us, and we'll talk more. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, man. And today, for the very first time, we're actually live streaming this event thanks to Untitled. And we have Sammy.
Great. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Sammy Siddiqui. I'm the founder and CEO of Untitled. It's a pleasure to be here with Product Tag Toronto, Shopify, and all of you. It's also a pleasure to be able to stream this event live on Untitled and take questions from the audience. Untitled is an interactive broadcast and live events platform. It allows for multi-way interactivity between a live audience and the speaker. We are currently looking for fresh talent, so please see me after this event if you're interested, or you can send an email to jobs@synaptop.com. Thank you.
All right, so this is the first time it's being recorded live. This is the first time we have to cap, so no pressure. I hope I don't screw this up. Thank you everyone for coming today. Let's see if this works. Okay, it's not going next. All right. So before I begin, I wanted to ask, who here is currently working as a product manager? Okay. Who here wants to get into product management? Perfect. And who here is launching a product or service? Service? Okay. The rest of you guys, I don't know why you're here. Just joking, no. Okay. I think I'll have to just stand behind here, which is unfortunate. Okay. So, okay. Product strategy. I think for most people here, they have some connection to either launching a product or currently working in product management. Who here thinks strategy is an important part of that? Strategy? Okay. So that's good to hear. A lot of people realize strategy is an important part of product management, but I feel that the tools that we have aren't fully equipped for that. Product managers or people wanting to get into product managers or people that are launching a business are great at solving a problem. You know, the tools that are out there in the world with minimum viable product, you know, experiment-based product management, it really helps you optimize how to like kind of solve a user need. And I dare say this, but consultants are really good at the strategy part. And I think product managers can learn a bit from consultants. I have a bit of issue with consultants because they always have one right answer, which is not the best, I think, but there is a lot that we can learn from them. So, I'm currently working as a senior product manager at Loblaw Digital. Let me tell you about my background. So I did engineering at University of Waterloo, where I did mechatronics engineering, which is very tough, I'm not gonna lie. And then I did my MBA at Queen's University. And then I worked at Apple for one of my co-op terms. Now, for those of you that know me, I'm an Apple fan, you can put it that way. So, Apple didn't mean anything to me until the launch of the iPhone. When the iPhone launched, I was like, this is the most phenomenal thing ever. I watched the iPhone keynote 6 times, with popcorn, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I made it a goal in my 3rd year that I want to work at Apple before I graduate Waterloo. And from my 3rd year to my 5th year, Waterloo has 5-year programs, I didn't fail. I applied to Apple 16 times over 2 years. At one point, I biked after a recruiter and left my portfolio on their windshield. And I finally, interviewed 4 times, and I finally ended up getting a job there in Silicon Valley, and it was a great learning experience. So, just it was quite interesting. I've also done product management at Bell. Now, this has been a more traditional experience. Is anyone here from Bell? Okay. I say it's the way you shouldn't do product management. It's much more waterfall, and I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned at Bell. And I also had a startup. Now, when things were really slow at Bell, I started a startup on the side, and this was a great learning experience. I had 3 goals for my startup. I said I wanted to spend less than $10,000 to fully develop this and market and get it into the App Store. I wanted to get, I wanted to get 10,000 users, right? And I wanted to learn something from this experience. And I would like to say that I did spend. The third one was, sorry, I launched it in 3 months. So I launched it in 3 months. I spent less than $10,000. Unfortunately, I didn't find product market fit, and I couldn't get to my 10,000 users. But this was an exceptional learning experience. I learned more spending this $10,000 than my $90,000 MBA. When you have to fight tooth and nail to get customers, you really learn how things work. When I have to optimize subject line in MailChimp to increase open rate, rubber hits the ground, right? Like, they really understand what it means to do product management or launch your own business. And currently, I am a senior product manager at Loblaw Digital, and here I help you buy your groceries online and hopefully save you a ton of time while doing it. And we're in about 100 stores, so we manage the website that helps you do that. I'm also a lead instructor for product management at BrainStation, and I'm really proud to announce today that we're also launching a platform called Product IQ. I find that a lot of product education and articles that I find online are missing examples and use cases. There's something called, it's called disruption, right? Like innovation and disruption. And if you read about it online, the videos are half an hour long, and they have examples from the steel industry. And they're not really relevant, right? So I think that want to make the videos much smaller, or content, or whatever it is, and make it filled with examples and use cases. So back to Apple. Do you guys know how Apple designs products differently than other companies? Right? So there are different types of companies. Some companies are engineering focused. Some companies are business focused. Apple is industrial design focused. So they have, Apple Campus is in a loop, and they have infinite loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And IL1 is where the industrial designers are. And these 21 industrial designers control everything that the company does. So when you launch a new iPhone, the industrial designers, including Johnny Ive, that all report to Johnny Ive, will be like, this is what the phone needs to look like. Now go figure out the engineering and UX to make that happen. And the engineer's like, well, how can you, you can't get reception on a steel back. We'll invent a way, all right? So, Apple really is industrial design down, and I thought that was something interesting that they do different than other companies. Okay. So what is a product manager? Anyone know what a product manager, actually, I'm gonna go to this. Have you guys seen this before? It's actually made by the founder of Product Tank. So product management is the intersection of UX, tech, and business. And Martin Erickson, who is the founder of Product Tank, said that as a product manager, you have to be really good in one of these areas, but you have to be passionate and you have to be conversant in all of them, right? Now, which one of these do you think is one that will make you the most successful product manager, UX, tech, or business? Who's for UX? Okay, kind of like that. Well, but what about tech? 1 or 2 people. And business? Yeah, I'm more business oriented, so I would definitely agree with that. That's a rhetorical question. There's no right answer. If you look at Apple, it's very much a business and UX strong company, and Facebook, the opposite. Mark Zuckerberg is the most tech person that you can ever work with. So there's no right answer, and good products come from all areas. So, anyone know who Donald Rumsfeld is? Okay, controversial person. He's the Secretary of State for the United States. And whether you believe, I'm not going to debate what his policies were. He decided whether to go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not here to debate that. But he has a quote that's become really famous. And that quote is, there are things that you know that you don't know. And there are things that you don't know that you don't know. And the things that you don't know are the most dangerous. Right? And my hypothesis for today and for this talk, what I want to get out of this is to help you with the unknown unknowns. And just to expand your horizon to see if there's anything that you might be missing. So, you're a savvy product manager or someone with an idea. What happens next? Well, the first thing that comes to your mind is developers and tech. And you say, well, can I build this? And you know what? I work with 4 or 5 startups in the city, and guess what the answer is? Yes, they can build it. There's no problem there. The problem comes with, can you sell it? Right? This is where I find that they haven't put enough thought to, and I think it's not completely their fault. We'll go into why growth was so encouraged and pushed that people were not looking at monetization. And really, this equation determines profitability and how much you're going to make. If there's anything that it's pretty simple, right? Can you build it? If you can build it, can you sell it? Will determine how much money you'll make. If there's anything that you'll remember today, is this. And today, I'm not going to talk to you at all, or not too much about can you build it, because I think you can. There's more than enough content out there on optimizing products. I'm going to hopefully help you out with can you sell it. So, well, what's the problem with not thinking about selling? Well, typically, if you have an idea and you go towards building it, you build it and you put it out into the world, you might find that you don't make money from it, which is a bit of a problem, right? So if you look at Twitter has 300 million users. You know how much money they made last quarter? Does anyone know? Anyone know? Well, they made a loss of $140 million. Okay. What's another really snappy company that we're all really excited about? Snapchat. Great, right? Like amazing app, solves people's problems. right? I'm not making fun of that, but like think about it, right? So, you know how much money did they make last year? They lost $500 million last year. And they're about to go public, and in their SEC filing, they actually put this as a risk. They put a risk saying that they may never make money. They have put down as a risk that they may never make money, which is really interesting. They said they have to reduce their costs, and if they don't do that, they may actually never make money. Which is interesting. So I think that, things are changing. You have to think about monetization early, because the world of they'll build it, we'll build it, and it'll come, that's gone. And even if you see investments in Silicon Valley, what's happening is there's actually more money going into Silicon Valley to VCs, but they're doubling down on what works. They're doubling down on the Ubers, they're doubling down on the more successful investments and moving away from really early stage investments. So, what do you have in your toolkit that helps you figure out, can you sell it? Well, the first one, the build, measure, learn. Anyone know about that? Really kind of hypothesis-based product management. You test something out and you improve. Everyone knows about that. Customer journey, that helps you with, can you build it? What about customer journey mapping? Right, really obvious, kind of map out the journey and see what areas are bad and then improvement. That also helps you with, can you build it? And then there's something called Business Model Canvas, which is pretty famous. It's been downloaded 5 million times. I learned about it in my Queen's MBA, and a lot of startups use it. That helps you with, can you build it, and then can you sell it? But it has a very, I think it doesn't have enough emphasis on that. The product IQ framework that I'm going to talk about borrows heavily from McKinsey. So anyone know what McKinsey is? McKinsey, the consulting firm. They are the world's #1 consulting company, very difficult to get into. I interviewed with them in New York. They had 6 rounds of interviews. I made it to the 5th round and didn't make it any further. But through that process, I did hundreds of cases. You do hundreds of 45-minute cases, and you start to build an intuition about what do these consultants look at? And for product management, they have this one framework called Business Situation Framework that I borrowed heavily from, and also looked at 5 Forces and a few others, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. So let's look at Business Model Canvas and Product IQ Framework. Both of them tell you how to build it and how to sell it. The Business Model Canvas is a strategic, straight from Wikipedia, it's a strategic management template for developing new or documenting the existing business models. It's a visual chart with elements describing a product's value, proposition, infrastructure, customers, and finance. And Product IQ Framework is a lean startup template that helps you assess end-to-end viability. The key word is end-to-end viability of new business models or major strategic changes. The framework covers analysis of customers, product, company, and competition. And so, just as a small recap, for those that haven't seen, this is what the Business Model Canvas was made by this person called Roman Pichler, and it covers a few key areas. Really focused on both areas. It covers key activities, key partners, segments, resources, cost structures, channels, value proposition, and also covers revenue. And the Product IQ framework that I'm going to talk to you about, as I said, borrows heavily from McKinsey's Business Situation Framework. Now, I want you guys to look at this really carefully and try to poke holes at it. Challenge me on this. I want to see what is missing here to make sure that everything is covered, and see if there's any areas that are missing. And I would love to talk to you about it. But it basically, I looked at 4 key areas and distilled it down to really simple things that you need to take away for launching a new product and for product management. So, in terms of a customer, there's 3 areas that you have to look at. You have to look at identifying the segment, which is segment size, market share, and trends, what the needs of each one of those segments are, and price sensitivity. So actually, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to I'm going to talk to you about the framework, and then I'm going to apply it to a startup that's here. So Knockery, could you guys put up your hand? So they're one of the startups that I'm working with in the city, and I told them yesterday that I'm going to apply this framework on your startup, and they haven't even seen the health check. So this will be the first time they'll find out, according to this framework, how they're doing and how to improve, or what to watch out for. And in terms of product, what's your unfair advantage to compete in the market? Right? Do you have an unfair advantage or do you not? We hope you do. What's your distribution channel to reach your end customers? For tech, it's apps and web, so this area is never a problem. And are you a commodity or can you differentiate yourself? Your goal is to try to be as differentiated as you can because you can charge more for it, right? And in terms of company, what are your capabilities? Key questions, can you build it? Most likely for most of you guys, yes, but can you sell it? I hope so. And sales channel, how do you reach your buyer? And for supplier power in tech, who do you think are suppliers for tech companies? Developers, yeah, there you go, right? And are developers cheap or expensive? Are they like Madonnas to manage? The developer one, yeah, they are very difficult to manage. And in terms of competition, right? What's the rivalry like in the industry that you're going into? What are the barriers to entry? And do you have any brand loyalty, right? So this framework, it simplifies it down to the key things that you need to look at when assessing new market launch. And I want you guys to poke holes at it and tell me, well, Mo, you forgot about this, or we didn't think about this. And this is coming from Kinsey, it's coming from Porter's 5 Forces, and a few other areas, all compressed into one sheet. So if you do a comparison of business model canvas versus product IQ canvas, so business model talks about distribution channel, identifying segments, and value proposition, right? And product IQ framework covers other areas like market size. This is probably the biggest concern that I have. Like is the market you're going after big enough for you to make money? Competition and internal capabilities. Okay. Now, let me talk to you about Knockery, which is the app that they were voluntold that they're going to be doing data analysis on. So Knockery is actually, I like you guys, so it's not that, there's not too many reds there. So Knockery is an app that is for recruiting. It's AI for recruiting, right? And it's specifically targeted at sales recruiting, right? And their main hypothesis is that for sales and customer service jobs, there's a lot that you can find based on visually interviewing the person. Are they smiling enough of the time? You know, they can tell based on your facial feature, how honest are you? Now, we'll go into this later. Lucky for these guys, they have a very strong tech partner, IBM Watson, that has APIs that detect things like this. That really helps kind of help them get there. Now let's apply the product IQ framework to Knockery, and please guys, pick holes at it. Let me know if there's anything that's missing, because then we can talk about that. So this is what the framework is, and we'll go through each one of these boxes and give these guys a red, yellow, green. I hope you like the answers. So when you think about customers, right? Let's identify what is the customer segment? How are they trending over time? Is it an area of growth? And how does it compare to other people? Very, very simply. For Knockery, there's 3 main areas. Don't read this, I'll just talk to you about it. There's something called, anybody who's applied for a job, do you sometimes not hear back from the employers? Right? It turns out it happens 75% of the time. And it is a discomforting experience. My wife doesn't like me to swear, or to say bad words, so I will not say anything else. So basically, 75% of the time you don't hear back from employers, and that is a bad experience, and there is a lot of AI towards improving candidate experience. That's one segment. The other segment is corporate recruitment for recruitment, right? People want to hire better employees, and they want to hire employees faster. And the third one is the retail recruitment. And the cost for the number 1 and 2, it's surprising to me, but it costs 1.4 times the salary of an employee, which is about $50,000 for 1 and 2, and for retail employees, it's about 16% of the cost of the employee when you consider training and bringing them on board and the wrap-up time, so it's about $4,000. So this is a new space. We don't have data on market share or growth rates, but overall, I think they're not bad. Who thinks that this, in terms of the market size, if Naukri is going towards retail recruitment and employers are paying $4,000 per employee, is that a market that is interesting? It is to me. I give them a green here. Questions later. Okay, and when you now let's identify the needs of all three of these segments. Candidate experience. They want a better candidate experience, and they want to save time. So when you apply to a job, you actually want to hear back from someone. For corporate recruiting, they want to hire better employees, and they want to hire employees faster. And for retail, this is really interesting to me. Did you know it's harder to get a job at McDonald's than to get into Harvard MBA, based on the numbers? So McDonald's acceptance rate is 6.2%, and Harvard's acceptance rate is 7%. Not really hard, but it's something to think about. Look, so for the sales recruiting space, there's such a high volume of applicants for jobs that are just, entry-level jobs are very competitive to get. It's actually easier to get a job as a manager than it is to get a job in entry-level. We find this in many areas, actually. So, I'll give this a green because there is high volume here. And in terms of price sensitivity, how much would the players be willing to pay? Well, for job tracking and corporate recruiting, they're moderately price sensitive because you're paying $40,000 or $50,000 to hire an employee, so you'd be willing to fork out some money to get better candidates. And for sales retail recruiting, you're probably more price sensitive because you're paying a lot less, 10 times less. But because there is a high volume of applicants, I'd also give price sensitivity a green here. And now let's look at product. And I'll ask you guys to give me the red, yellow, green here. So, Naukri's hypothesis is that for sales and customer service jobs, you can use your facial visual cues to help judge if a person is going to be successful in the job or not. And they have data to back this up. So if you're smiling 30% of the time, there's some studies that tell you. So we'll take that at their word. They have a strong tech partner in IBM Watson that they're able to link up to their APIs and help them solve some of the technical issues there. And I think they're very well suited because what is AI good for? When AI is going to be the next big thing, where is AI going to be most effective? It's going to start at repetitive jobs. It's going to be things that are easy to do and repetitive. And then this, when you have high volume and you're just screening tons of applicants, I think this would be a good fit. Does anyone think that this is a good fit or a bad fit?
My question would be, do they have any patents? So if this does work, is it advisable?
They don't have patents, and that's a very good point. And that will come up pretty soon after as a point of really great that you brought that up. So for the product, it's an unfair advantage right now. Distribution channel, how are they going to reach their customers? Very simply, app, web. This is why tech is amazing. You launch an app, you're available to 1 billion customers overnight. This is green for most tech companies. And are they a commodity or are they easily differentiable? Well, better AI works on more data. And because Naukri is new, they don't have a lot of data. And this is where I think that they're in a little bit of an interesting situation. So I would give them a yellow, not a red. And let's look at their internal capabilities. As I mentioned many times, they have a strong tech partner. They can leverage existing APIs. And the CEO has direct sales experience. So I think when you're looking at the question, can they build it? Yes. And can they sell it? I hope so. They do have some experience there. So I'd also give this a green. And when you're looking at sales channel, this is how are you going to reach your buyer? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I said $1 billion, but it's probably not $1 billion, it's a lot. So, you know, I don't know how many people there are, but it's big enough market for it to be interesting, I think. Even, you know, $1 billion is great, but less than that is probably okay as well. But that's a good point, like, I'm not considering the language. Sales channel, how are they going to be able to reach their buyer? This is an interesting one. For Naukri, they are not a B2C company, right? They have to, their buyer is Starbucks hiring manager, right? The Starbucks hiring manager has to decide to use this platform, and once they do, the good thing is anyone applying to Starbucks will have to go through Naukri. So I think this is a good thing for them in that they make one sale with a retail partner, and everybody on that platform applying to them will have to use the platform. So I'd give that a green here too. Space. A lot of them have beta on their site, which indicates that they're all new. There is not a lot of saturation, and most of the players are targeted at the juicy corporate sector, 1 and 2. There are not too many people you know, interested in the small sales, $4,000 area, which is what these guys are focused in. So I'd give them a green here. And in terms of barrier to entry. So what do you think are barriers to entry? Do they have a strong chance here? Does Naukri have a strong chance based on what I told you? Who thinks they have a great chance to survive? And there's not going to be a lot of, okay. Who thinks they have a moderate chance? Okay, who thinks they have no chance? Wow. Okay, it's good. I think we got most on yellow, which is what I put it on here too, which is great. You know, they are new, and as I said, your AI algorithm improves with data, and they need more users, so they'll eventually get there. But right now, it's yellow. And for brand loyalty, I said approximately the same thing. This is a problem for many startups, that they don't have a lot of loyalty because they're new, right? So, you know, what do you do with this framework? Fine, we filled this out, looks mostly green, some reds and yellows. Well, I think where the few startups I work with in the city have the most problem, and where you should be most concerned, is the customer part, right? A lot of them can build it. They have the tech to build it, and they actually figured out their competitors somewhat, but the segments that they're going after aren't big enough and aren't interesting enough. There's one startup I work with, and it made a small tweak in their business model, and ended up with like 400%, according to their numbers, that are projections of where they're going to get to. Using their own projections, got to 400% more revenue. Not based on my numbers, based on their own numbers. Basically what we did, they were going into a market using CPMs as their business model, or if you know advertising, it's like really cheap. You get, I think it's $5 for 1,000 impressions. I said instead of going with CPMs, think about freemium, right? So have your app for free and then have it upgraded, like let people pay for the higher end version. And surprisingly, the freemium conversion rate can be as high as 10%. 10% of Spotify users are premium users. I put a low end estimate of 2.5%, and that made it 400% more profitable using their own projections. So kind of really simple framework, one page, and you can apply it to your own site. It's available on productiq.io. You can go and download it and apply it, stress test it, and complain to me if you find that it's not comprehensive enough. So now we've talked to you about strategically what area you're going to go and launch into. Now let's say, once you decided what area to launch into, how should you actually enter a market? And the way that you should enter a market is to think about this curve. Has anyone seen this curve? Right? So you should try to launch to an innovator. The innovator customer segment doesn't even want a benefit from your product. They want to be first to use it. So my dad bought Google Glass for $2,000, and he wasn't looking for a benefit. He just wants to he wanted to try it out. He wanted to be cool with his friends. Not with his friends. He just wants to see what, like, what's this all about? I'm not sure if he knew all the features. I know he might be listening today, but he definitely wasn't looking to solve a problem with Google Glass. These are your innovators. Your early adopters actually want some benefit from your product, but they're willing to put up with the experience that's not fully refined. So maybe you put Amazon Echo here, maybe you put Apple Watch, which my wife has. I would say that they haven't fully solved the needs of the early majority. But the early majority and the late majority, this is interesting, right? This is where the money is at. And most startups see where the money is at and aim for there. But the early majority and the late majority are the toughest crowds, right? These guys will not accept any defects in your product, and if they don't like it, they'll search away. So, what I see the problem with most startups is that they look at this and they try to go for that market, but it's not always advisable because that's the toughest crowd to please. What you should do, or what you think about, is build something for the innovators, then the early adopters, and then you reap the benefits and you get the most of the money. So if you look at Tesla, they built the Roadster, right? This car is on the market, $150,000. It has half the mileage of the Model S. It was 1 year delayed. The company almost went bankrupt, and still it's sold out. I told you, innovators will, they just believe in you, and they want to be the first to try stuff, and they will help carry you forward, give you enough leverage to move on, to build your brand, and that will help you get to the early adopters. Now, early adopters, as I said, want some legitimate benefit from your product, and I would say Tesla provided that. Fastest production car in the world, but now there are still concerns. Is the Tesla charging network wide enough? Some people say no, but that's what Tesla has to get to be able to please the Model 3, the people that are not very rich, including me. I ordered a Model 3, and it's coming in 2 years, so I'm looking forward to it. But that market is the toughest. It's very hard to please them. But if you do it right, it can be handsome. It can be profitable. And Tesla, with one tweet, zero cost of acquisition, sold $5 billion of product. Right? They didn't even announce what the car looks like, when it's going to be delivered. Elon Musk tweeted, go on here, give me your $1,000, and it sold $5 billion of cars. Right? So this is because Tesla built their brand, and now they're getting to a market that's profitable. Actually, now they're doubled. They have about 400,000 reservations. So, I talked about this curve. It's all great, but in tech, we are lucky because, this is how fast we get. We get our customers in tech. Look how fast we got to so many customers. Why is that? Someone tell me here why in tech you're able to get to the mass market so quickly. Excellent. Distribution cost, 0. When you launch an app on the App Store, it's available to less than 1 billion, 500 million users overnight, right? In the old world, I have to get my product out into a supermarket, and that's how my distribution channel works. In tech, we're so lucky. But with luck comes some challenges as well. And if you're not careful, you'll lose them that fast too, right? Does anyone remember this thing called the Pokemon Go? I don't remember it either, right? So in tech, yes, we're lucky, we're getting customers really fast, but you have to be just as aggressive to keep innovating, to keep your product front of mind, and I give mad respect to Facebook for that. Right? They've been able to hold on to their market. They're constantly innovating. They are losing in some markets. The tweens, the Snapchat is coming and eating away, and they're actually losing customers in that segment, but mad respect for them for what they've done so far. Now, let's, anyone know about Johnny Ive? Yeah. Sir Johnny Ive. He is, he's a senior vice president of design at Apple. And I want you to look at this quote, and this will tie into the last section for today. So I wrote a somewhat interestingly controversial article about the depth of the minimum viable product, and I became the #1 most read author on minimum viable product on Quora. So I'm going through what my hypothesis was there, but before we do that, let's talk about minimum viable product. Anyone know what that is? Most people here, right? The minimum viable product is a version of your new product that has a single goal. The singular goal of that version of the product is to maximize learning from the customer, and that's it. How can you put the least amount of effort to get the maximum amount of learning from your customer? And if you can do it without writing a single line of code, amazing. Even better. That's the concept of MVP. And for anyone here, that sounds great. It's been really helpful for the most part. And how much you invest in your MVP depends on this. How much competition there is in the field that you're going into. If you have zero competition versus if you have lots of competition. This is really interesting that I found. Anyone heard of Tech Basic? I'm not surprised. So Tech Basic is actually the most featured utility powerful app on the App Store. It's interesting, eh? Costs $20. And can you see the UX here? I think they forgot to hire a UX designer. There's not much UX here. It's pretty embarrassing. The functionality it has, what it allows you to do, it allows you to control Bluetooth devices. It's like MATLAB in your pocket. And it turns out it's the most featured app because there's no competition. So if you're building your MVP, you can get away with a little bit less depending on how much competition you have. And you think about the finance sector, like finance apps, Scotia Digital last week announced $1 billion into their digital app, right? So much competition. You gotta be, not only do you have to be functionally delivering value, you gotta make sure your UX and user experience is good enough, otherwise people will just ignore you. Right? So what happened with MVP? Why did I write about the death of the MVP? Well, let's look at how it was actually operationalized. So let's say you're building a product, and in the long run, it should have 10 features, right? What people thought about when they read about MVP was that they put 7 features in, but 7 features that barely worked, or sometimes worked were buggy, right? They said they want to validate learning. And for those of you who work in software, will know there's a big difference between putting in a feature and putting it in with high quality. Depends on how many bugs you have, there's a really big difference, right? So when people thought about MVP, they said, let's put it 7 out of 10, but let's make them whatever, just learn something from them, and if it's buggy, it's okay. Well, this has led to a ton of apps going into the startup graveyard, and customers are just not resonating with that. So what I'm talking about here is minimum viable experience. Instead of putting in 7 features that barely work, put in 3 features that are absolutely required, but put them in beautifully. Make sure that there are no bugs, make sure that they work really, really well, and I think this will resonate with customers a lot more. And I'll finish off with this story. And kind of the inspiration for minimum viable experience, right? So when I was working at Apple, we got to sit in with a speaker series with all of the executives. And it was only for the interns. We could ask the SVPs and the CEO any question we want, right? And if you're a full-time employee, you couldn't get into this room, which is amazing. And so, someone asked Johnny Ive, who was the Senior Vice President of Design, why did you guys not put in copy and paste? It seems like such an obvious feature for the first iPhone. Why did you guys not put that in? And if you know Johnny Ive, he's British and he's kind of philosopher. He sat back and he thought about it. He's like, it's not like we forgot to put it in. We just couldn't figure out how to do it well, right? And that, my friends, is what I think is concept of MVE, minimum viable experience. So, thank you. So you can go and download the framework online and fill it out for your own startups and challenge me on it. And I have their example on there too for help. But I'll take any questions you guys have.
During the process of brainstorming ideation, how much, I'm not sure about the algorithm, how much design thinking is involved?
So we, about a third. If I was actually to put a math figure on it, about a third, and I got that. So, I'll repeat the question. So the question was, when you're launching a new product or feature, if I got this correct, how much time do you spend on design thinking? Understanding customer needs, right? And my answer is, based on my very last project, about a third. So the project that I'm launching is a 3-month project. Actually, it's about 4 months, and I put 5 weeks on user experience and customer discovery. And these design sprints are run by the UX team, and they're very structured. We bring customers in, we have envisioned prototypes, we use usertesting.com, and we fully optimize the experience. So. Any more questions?
In your experience, clearly both execution and strategy is very important.
Yeah.
How much time do you split between strategy and execution?
Yeah, so I think for product managers, most of your time is execution. And that's not going to change. But at least when I'm, is anyone from BreakStation here? Okay. Okay, so don't take this the wrong way, but I looked at it online as well. We're not teaching product strategy and market sizing. And I was like, well, maybe we're just missing that at BreakStation. And then I checked online at the #1 selling product course on Udemy, and it's missing. I checked every single section. It was $200. I downloaded this thing. I said, am I just missing this? And the 4 or 5 startups that are working with the city all have the same questions. Like, it's the unknown unknown. They're not sure what they're looking for. And with this person that I'm working with, he's like, well, I don't know if it's not making, my numbers aren't making sense. This is not profitable. And you say, well, what's the segment that, is there another segment that you can go for? Using your capabilities, using your product strength, can you apply some very simple McKinsey analysis to figure out if you're in the right area? So it doesn't take a lot of work. It's just in the beginning, it's making sure that you're on the right track. And for larger companies, I would say like Facebook and Amazon, probably this will be done for you and it'll be done well. But in startups, you're not even validated. You don't even know if you're gonna you have nothing validated. You don't even know if you're gonna survive tomorrow, right? So it's really important. And even at lucky to say at Loblaw Digital, Loblaw Digital set up a startup, 200 people separate, and we have a lot of room, and they do a lot of strategy. And I find that it's not in the material that we're teaching. So it's not a lot, but it's important, and it sets you on the right track.
Given the importance of integrations and your new startup,
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Given the importance of integrations and actually being part of the ecosystem, like I'm working on a product where our success depends on how potentially get integrations. It's hard to go out and negotiate those as a product, but your product is worthless until they happen. So, how do you play the ball?
Yeah, it's a tough one. When you're very dependent on a platform like Apple or Facebook, you have to play by their rules. But you have to see, you're obviously solving a problem. You have a hypothesis that you're solving some problem. Can you use your skills and expertise to apply it in a segment that where you can make money? But you're right, that's a limitation. If you have a big dependence on a partner, like Apple or Facebook, then you're tough. But it should be a way to optimize. So.
When I was looking at the product like framework,
Yeah.
what I was thinking is there a one-to-one market? I mean, your strategy is usually something much larger.
Yes.
You have multiple products.
Yeah.
Also, I was thinking about why multiple products, because you show the product life cycle.
Yeah.
And for different phases, maybe a different strategy is needed.
Yeah.
And the entire product IQ framework kind of looks very static. I do
Yeah.
not see any measurement metrics.
So excellent. So if you look at can you build it and versus can you sell it, this is focused on can you sell it and what segments to sell on, and it's optimized for beginning of the curve, like for new product line. Literally, I'll tell you, it's from a McKinsey business situation framework, and I cut down fat from it, like things that are just. It's literally for new product launches. It's a framework, and I just made it as simple as possible, purely as simple as possible. Made it 3 per each segment, and that's what it is. But it's for new. There's another one for pricing strategies, another one for different ones. But this is for new product launch, which is most of what product managers would be responsible for. Yeah. Cool. Are there any questions online this time? All right. Well, thank you. Oh, there's one more. Okay.
You said to put goals in the framework, and one goal is human error. So how do you go about reducing your own biases while going through it? Say you think of it.
Yeah. So I mean, like in Nakuri's case, if you. Yeah, you have to be. I have to be a little bit honest, but maybe get it checked by a few people. That's like applying any single framework. If you're doing 5 forces analysis, if you go to Harvard's website, they have like 9 frameworks. Every single one is dependent on, what you're filling it out. So there's always self-bias. Yeah.
So if you rated a box yellow or red,
Yeah.
how do you decide what to do with it?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so if you, it's being honest with yourself, right? So if you have a box that's red, try to move it to yellow. If you have a box that's yellow, try to move it to green. But you're never going to have all green. You're never going to have that. If you're a startup, you're always going to have some brand issues, right? But you have to recognize that. This helps you recognize that and go into it in an honest way and see what you can do about it. But the one thing of caution is watch out that if your customer segments are red, that's a very typical problem, which is the reason why I did this talk. You need to fix that. That area, if you're going in a segment that doesn't make sense, it's an area of concern. I think you guys know about Mailbox app. It had a million beta users before it launched. Dropbox paid $100 million for it, and then they shut it down. And I actually found a consulting report that said, before launch, they were like, why are you doing this? Because in utilities, in a utility section, people are not willing to pay for things, and the differentiator was the snooze, as easily copyable. So I'm not saying they hired, not saying that at all, but there was evidence before they went in that it's a very tough market to be in.
Hey Mo.
Yeah.
So you've done your MBA, and one of the things that we taught during our MBA is of marketing concepts is that the way you go about targeting your customers is through STP, segment targeting positioning. And since one of the concepts, like if you want to target, like how do you market size? Maybe TAM, SOM, or one of these things.
Yeah.
And so like you work at Apple as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've heard is that Apple doesn't believe in kind of segmenting the market, and they want to make a product for everybody.
Yes.
Like I mean, since you work there,
yeah, let me talk about that. So a really interesting concept. So what Apple does is called situational marketing and situational thinking versus segmentation. So when you can see between Apple and Android, when Apple has an ad, they'll show a situation. They'll show someone saving time using their app. Now, a grandmother needs to save time checking her mail, and the computer hacker who can write code like crazy also needs to save time. So Apple looks at things from a situational perspective, and when you look at their ads, they're all showing you solving a problem or doing something, as opposed to Android, which will be like, oh, this demographic, like 18 to 24 years old, whatever, tech savvy. So, yeah.
I think there's a question on it.
All right, there's a question. Okay.
So is it worth putting out an MVP?
Is it worth putting out an MVP that is buggy in order to get investors? It will be buggy, but it will get interested. What do you guys think? You think, yeah?
Yeah. So what I'd say is that, I mean, this is a bit difficult because yes, we want to like put something out, but investors don't necessarily rely only on an MVP. They rely on things like distraction,
yeah.
And the team as well. So
yeah. So you can actually convince investors, right? If you're really careful, you can convince investors to get money, but you still may not win with customers. So it's a tough one to say. If you want to get investors, you can actually fool them into an MVP that we're to get. But it's not advisable. So. How important is it to be versatile as a product plan? Is it the plan to meet assumptions, or does it get too complicated? Is it wise to adopt a plan to meet assumptions, or does it? I'm not sure if I quite understand that. Does anyone understand that question? You should definitely be versatile. That makes sense. I disagree with that. So.
Awesome. So do we have any further questions, or?
One more, and then we'll end it. Last question. Okay.
This might be unrelated, but there's a lot of startups that are just focusing on games, and I was wondering how the framework applies to something that necessarily doesn't solve a problem.
So great. So what's your purpose of making a game? At the end of the day, do you want to make money from it, or is it for charity? Like, would you want to make the game to make money?
It really depends on who makes the game.
Right. For most people, a game is solving the problem of entertainment, and people pay for entertainment. There's a very big industry around it, and you can apply the model saying, what in this sense it would be, what segment can I go after that's most profitable? As an example, it's surprising how much mothers will pay for kids' educational games, right? So if you have a developer that wants to make a game, if you want to, and you have somewhat of an interest in that, you could go after one area, or you could go after education, and just look at the segment sizes, and you'd be surprised how much they're willing to pay. So that's how you'd apply it there. All right.
I think we have one more up there. How to find passionate people to help build your product. Do you have any insights on that?
You need good people that share your passion for a startup. Any idea one could find people that help build your product? Yeah, I mean, I think it's just number one is awareness, right? Telling people about it, and going to startups and going to meetups, and anyone that resonates with what you're talking about, speak to them and have further conversations. You can use online forums to do that, or you can do it in person. Just you have to get the name out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today.